friends, if you don't want to get dementia, then you really need to fight with flavonoid-rich foods, which are the master keys to slow down cognitive decline. Take a look at this chart, which was compiled by following prospectively 83,643 women without a previous history of depression, and women who had the highest intake of citrus fruits, including just citrus fruit juice, had the lowest rate of depression at a 10-year follow-up. Have you heard that depression is pseudodementia? Fatigue, loss of interest, memory problems, and mood changes occur in both dementia and depression. Hard to tell which is which. However, depression is reversible, unlike most dementias. But staying depressed really amplifies your risk of dementia. So why not brighten your day with some green tea, which has flavanoids concentrated in their leaves. Now, green tea has several mood-enhancing and cognitive-boosting effects due to its unique combination of bioactive compounds. The key flavonoids in green tea include epigalactocatechin gallate. It's a strong antioxidant. It has anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties to support our brain. It also has epicatechin, which enhances blood flow to support the brain and again to help us remember better and learn better. It makes our brain more neuroplastic and it can help support our cardiovascular health. The third flavonoid is epigalactocatechin, which possesses both anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective effects to really enhance our mental clarity and reduce our oxidative stress. And the fourth is epicatechin gallate that contributes to antioxidant and anti-cancer properties, again to support our brain as well as our blood flow. Now, this isn't medical advice, and I'm sure if you are from a longevity culture, your parents probably told you the benefits of green tea as they were drinking it. It's not uncommon that families talk about the benefits of specific foods. Grandparents used to teach parents who would teach children which foods to eat and which foods to avoid, unless you live in America. We get our dietary advice directly from people trying to sell us something, like commercials and social media influencers. People think that if you have a big following, well then you must be legit. But nobody took me seriously until I started a YouTube channel. Go figure. Flavonoids have no calories, unlike proteins, carbs, and fats. And hence, they are underappreciated because we are a calorie-centric nation. We are either trying to avoid calories or trying to get more calories. Flavonoids are only found in foods packed with dietary micronutrients that feed your gut microbes. Fiber. Now, I recently heard a Harvard psychiatrist telling people that fiber isn't necessary for life because it hasn't been proven to be beneficial, as all the studies are epidemiological observation studies, which have only association with high fiber diets and lower body weight, better blood sugar control, better blood flow, lower cholesterol levels, lower cancer rates, including lower colon cancer rates, and better overall mental health. Now, I don't think she talked to Walter Willett, who is also a Harvard professor who happens to be an epidemiologist as well, and a professor of nutrition, in which he's been studying for decades longer than she has. She probably should have curbside him to get a more complete perspective of how nutrition and epidemiology really works. But based on her logic, she probably doesn't believe that smoking causes cancer and heart disease, because really nobody has performed a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial on tobacco use and heart disease and cancer. Do we really need those studies? Maybe physicians should have continued smoking because we never really proved that smoking is a problem, right? We had no randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. Does this make sense? Should we ignore the plethora of epidemiological studies linking tobacco smoke with an accelerated risk of cardiovascular disease and cancers? I'm sure the tobacco companies would have loved not to have been fined $206 billion, and I guess the U.S. government won the lawsuit despite the fact that we didn't have any randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. Maybe observational epidemiological studies are legit. Americans are super creative, and many enjoy making up stuff. They like to make up desserts and dishes, even their own diets. I mean, all this is for brain entertainment. I mean, fast food exists because your brain wants it. And it's hard to know when we're headed in the wrong path because the consequences may not happen for several decades later, like dementia. And when the brain is focused on self-preservation, it really sacrifices long-term survival. Fortunately, everybody has had plenty of signs that they're on the wrong track, but unfortunately, many of those signs are ignored. Fatigue, memory lapses, lack of interest to socialize. They are attributed to being depressed, but these are the same signs as dementia. Now, how do we treat it? We drug it up. I don't know. This isn't medical advice, so please see your own doctor to have personalized medical advice. But my experience as a physician is that drugs are supposed to be a bridge for health. For most people, it's a way of life. And ultimately, the body becomes refractory to drugs. And despite spending billions of dollars treating a boatload of chronic diseases with drugs, we all clearly see that we have an onslaught of skyrocketing dementia rates. And everybody acts like there's nothing that we can do, while all along we're training our children to embrace brain-eroding, dementia-promoting activities. And societal pressure encourages all of us to participate. And this is why it's even more important that parents take charge of their kids' diets, to fill their tummies with flavonoid-rich foods before sending them to public places, whether that's school or a birthday party. We are ignoring our brain health and unfortunately surrounded by social media influencers who choose to bury their head in the sand like ostriches to ignore sound epidemiological data. And unlike most other medical specialties, I rely heavily on epidemiology to be able to do my job effectively as an infectious disease doctor. In fact, the more that the public will listen to sound epidemiology, the easier it is for me to do my job. Now, my job is based on epidemiological data to help guide our recommendations in prevention and spread of contagions. And unlike most medical specialties, the medications that I prescribe, antibiotics, we always try to use as a bridge to health, and we give the minimum amount for the minimum duration of time. Our job is to figure out how to get people cured, get people off antibiotics, because we're trying to prevent antibiotic-resistant bacteria to preserve our antibiotics for our children's future. Now, it's been almost a century since penicillin was developed, and we finally recognize that minimizing antibiotics will help preserve our gut microbiome to preserve our health. So I can understand why Americans don't appreciate prospective observational studies. They basically have no experience. But admitting you have no experience is very different than disrespecting nutritional epidemiology altogether, which apply the same principles as epidemiological toxicology, epidemiological infectious disease. How do you randomize a group of people to get an infection or a toxin? Who wants to purposely go get the flu, measles, or tuberculosis? All of these fields are based on observational data. And if we didn't make adjustments based on inferences from these data and wait for a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, then we literally would be sitting ducks against infectious diseases like STDs, malaria, tuberculosis, pneumonias, urinary tract infections, cellulitis, and sepsis. Career scientists have made their livelihood studying and practicing epidemiological toxicology, where they infer whether or not a toxin threatens human health. Now, remember the movie Erin Brockovich? Would you prefer that they wait for a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial to take action, or remove that toxin in your food, water, and air?
By the way, we had that water brought in special for you folks. Came from Well and Hinkley.
You want to volunteer for that trial? Consumers and governments, they both demand that epidemiologists interpret data and infer causal reference and to state their level of confidence. Now, likewise, it's also impossible to perform long-term randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trials on whole food with fiber because no one will volunteer to eat any of those foods long-term. How do we isolate a food? It's impossible. There are over 200,000 whole foods to choose from. Which one are you going to pick? And is that really practical? Now, the reason why we need to focus on fiber is because attached to the fiber are the unique flavonoids. So if you aren't eating whole food plants in your diet, you're really missing out on flavonoids, like anthocyanins found in blueberry skin and seeds. Now, these anthocyanins are lost when you just drink blueberry juice. And it's actually preserved better if you eat freeze-dried blueberries. However, you don't lose all of it even drinking blueberry juice because of that color. Blueberries have so many seeds and skin that it's hard to totally separate that out. And it's important to eat blueberries because it can improve cognitive function. As a kid, my mom would always buy us juice to drink. But the problem is a lot of the juices that we bought were not real juice. They were concentrated with added sugar. How I do remember drinking those frozen orange juice concentrates, which we would just add water to mix. It didn't always taste so good. Our freezer was lined up with those frozen juice concentrates, but I don't really see them in the market anymore. They used to be the staple in our freezer too, but honestly, I always preferred the fresh. Fresh oranges have more flavonoids, which are abundant in the peel and pulp. And yes, I did say the peel. My mom used to dry the peels to save for later to flavor dishes. She would have orange peels all over the kitchen, and she would tell me all the benefits of eating orange peel. But you know how it is. Things just went in one ear and out the other. Obviously, I was still listening, but make sure not to confuse a fresh orange or even orange tea with candy oranges. Adding the chemical sugar counteracts what you're trying to do to preserve your brain. And it's not just oranges that are full of antioxidant micronutrients. Onions are rich in flavonols, highest in the outer layers. And this is why when you chop up your onions, you want to keep the outer layer. Now, it's not the one that's dried up. It's the one beneath the one that's all dried up. And this is also why I buy purple onions. I want the extra anthocyanins. Now, many misguided social media influencers think they discovered a new and improved diet that is better than longevity cultures. But there's no way for them to know because they haven't lived long enough. They are a N of one experiment. It's like betting on the stock market. Now, I'm more conservative. I don't like to gamble. So I'm going to take a look at what other people have been doing. Let's say millions of people for thousands of years, because doing it wrong will really kill my brain cells and accelerate dementia. Now, have you noticed that these new diets, they all start in America? And why is that? It's because we aren't a longevity culture and nobody credible talks to us about sound whole food nutrition. And we pretend that it's okay to eat processed food, that any diet will lead to health. It's really your choice. Really? Is it? It's almost like telling a college student, it's your choice how you want to study, how you want to design your program so that we can award you whatever degree you want to get. Really? Is that really how they study? When it comes to nutrition, it's hard to fool the rest of the world. These fad experimental diets, they don't take off in Asia, Europe, or Africa. Because a typical family has some nutritional background passed on from generation to generation. And they have someone who actually cooks to prepare fresh food. We get our nutritional foundation from TV commercials, social influencer shorts, and people with fancy titles from fancy university who have been eating lab-created food by food scientists their entire lives until they got fed up. And we get our food already prepared in the freezer section or a restaurant. And you're probably saying, well, Dr. Lu, you fall in the same category. Yeah, the difference is I'm not making up a crazy diet, and I'm just reinforcing what longevity cultures around the world have done for thousands of years. They've already done the experiment for us. Read your history books and see who lives the longest. These cultures all eat flavonoid-rich foods because these bioactive molecules activate and protect your mitochondria, your DNA, your gut, and your brain. These foods help reduce harmful microbes and promote beneficial microbes. But eating enough of them is a major hurdle, as a lack of these antioxidants is associated with both acute and chronic degenerative diseases, including dementia. Don't you find it kind of strange that many of our founding fathers lived longer and healthier lives than millions of people in the U.S. today, despite the fact that they had poor sanitation and no access to our modern medications? Take Thomas Jefferson. He was our third president. He lived till 83. Do you know how Thomas Jefferson took care of himself? He was an avid gardener. He grew over 330 vegetables and 170 fruits. Jefferson literally said, I live temperately, eating little animal food, and that as a condiment for the vegetables which constitute my principal diet. And Jefferson believed that the greatest service to any country is to add a useful plant to its culture. He was logging what he planted since the age of 25 and through his retirement until his passing at 83. Today, we don't make it past the 70s. And in fact, we live 4 years shorter than comparable countries. And besides, our current data, that's artificially inflated because millions of people are living on borrowed time, pumping down pharmaceuticals. Thomas Jefferson didn't take any big pharma drugs, but he had plenty of medicines that were in his garden.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And another big advantage that our founding fathers and past generations had is that they weren't surrounded with toxins. I recently bought a weighted vest, and when I unopened the packaging, it just reeked of chemicals, which is essentially air pollution. And I know that that was toxic to my lungs and my brain. And in fact, we can detect air pollution by biopsying your skin. And some of these pollutants, they cross the blood-brain barrier. So I make it a rule to air out new things. I really try hard not to buy anything new, but I made an exception with a weighted vest. So I left it downstairs airing, and my son thought that he would do me a favor and bring it to my room, but it still smelled. So I basically put it back in the backyard. Don't forget to open your windows every day. Your house is full of pollutants that can attack your brain on a microscopic scale. Pollutants are really hard to avoid these days, and nobody walks around with a spectrometer to know exactly what kind of chemicals are around. Hence, it's best to be well prepared and fill it up with flavanol-rich foods. Our industrial revolution really tainted food quality. The food we eat may have a longer shelf life, but they are shortening our lives. We are all in a giant, unnatural human food experiment, fooled by marketing gimmicks and the misguided belief that you basically just need to fill your bucket with calories, proteins, and vitamins, and you'll be okay. Until you're not, then we got drugs to back you up. We have strayed far away from the foods that Adam and Eve enjoyed, and we've filled our environment with man-made, chemicalized pollutants. We treat our oceans like sewers, the earth like a giant landfill, and we force everybody to inhale air pollution regardless of our tobacco use. However, despite these challenges, I'm comforted to know that it's still possible to live healthy longer than our founding fathers, because the longest living community on earth is in my backyard, the Seventh-day Adventist community, in which many of their members are centenarians, and most of them embrace a whole food plant-based diet. And when you change your diet and include more whole food plants, it really just takes 2 days, if you go all in, to see tremendous biological benefits. Doctors can measure it by your vital signs and your blood work. Processed food can't do this because it's crappy no matter how much fiber and protein you put in it. Eating processed foods, it takes away basically precious real estate in your stomach from eating something better. And what most people struggle with, including myself, is to get enough leafy greens, of which kale has a ton of flavonols distributed throughout the leaves. Last weekend, I got together with my siblings, brought my hand blender, washed some kale and some berries, put it in a mason jar, and then pulverized all of it with some soy milk. And I served it to their kids, and they kept saying, my kids won't drink it. Well, I proved them wrong. You put enough berries and it'll hide the grittiness of the leaves. But kale isn't the only cruciferous vegetable that are full of flavonoids. Parsley has flavones. It's again in the leaves. And for some reason, American restaurants like to decorate with parsley, but people don't like to eat it. But you can eat it. So the next time you get parsley on your dish, eat it and ask for more. You know, last weekend I also met up with my friend. We went shopping and she picked a bag of green grapes and she said that these were the most delicious grapes. And I don't doubt that. But I don't eat things for their delicious factor. I eat things for their flavanol content. So instead of green grapes, I always get the colored red grapes. They're the ones with the anthocyanins. And the darker the color, the better the grape. It's concentrated in the skin. So don't peel your grapes. And at the store, I found my childhood favorite fruit, apples, which have flavanols and anthocyanins, mainly in the skin. And do you know how many people peel and throw away the apple skins before they eat the apple? What a waste of the apple. The point of eating the apple should be to eat the skin. And this is another reason why apple juice, applesauce, is not the same as a fresh apple. And if you choose any of the items that I just mentioned, you're going to still be hungry because it's mostly water. But if you add some edamame beans or soy beans, then you will have a rich food with complete protein that is filled with isoflavones, which is present throughout the bean. And it's okay to end your meals with a flavonoid-rich dessert like dark chocolate that has flavin-3 alls found in cocoa solids. So technically, you can bypass the chocolate and get yourself some sugar-free cocoa powder because the ones filled with sugar and milk solids are counteracting what you're trying to do. They don't have much cocoa powder in it. Now, for some, I know this may be a pretty daunting list. So instead of doing all of it, just start with one item and incorporate one of these items every day. I try to do that because I think my food is my medicine. And it's hard to avoid the background noise of fat, protein, and carbs. America does not have a protein or fat deficiency problem. We are an energy-centric food nation, overfed and undernourished, missing essential micronutrients and underappreciating that there are plenty of nutrients that have no calories. These are the phytonutrients that we have yet to discover. Heard of traditional Chinese medicine? How do you think that was invented? How do you think people discovered the science of pharmacology? All of these are plant-based. And anyone who says plants are optional, they too need more flavonoids themselves. Flavonoid-rich foods help you think better, improve reaction time, and overall helps us stay smart and sharp so that we don't fall prey to internet scams and bad social media influencers. And I know your first thought is, where can I buy this in a pill? Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait for a while. There are too many to bottle up. And when that day comes, maybe there'll be those flying cars like on the Jetsons. In the meantime, work on preserving your brain and protecting it for your children by eating a diversity of food. Dementia doesn't start when you retire. It's a process that happens over decades and probably starts in your youth. The more you abuse your brain, the earlier dementia happens. So if you're going to do high contact sports, knocking your brain around, especially without protection, or eating a bunch of junk food filled with artificial colors and flavors and preservatives that lack flavonoids, then don't be surprised that you'll be at higher risk of dementia. These toxins insult your physical brain. And don't forget that you already have a lot of invisible toxins that you're unaware of. It's hard to avoid what you don't know. And yet so many people still encourage these high contact aggressive sports, which is like our modern day gladiator event. Remember how Romans gathered at the Colosseum to watch people take each other apart? How is that entertainment? And I'm sure that if you are into that sport, you're willing to take your chances on dementia. Really? But for the rest of us, we try to avoid that physical trauma. Unfortunately, many don't realize that chemical trauma becomes physical trauma to your brain. Demented people have smaller brains and holes in their brains. That means they're missing brain tissue. Now, obviously, there's multiple roads to get damaged brain tissue. And you can do it quickly through physical trauma, or you can basically take a detour to get to the same endpoint. If your food preferences are filled with chemicals that don't belong in your body, well, don't be surprised that your brain may start to regress 5 years after your frontal lobe develops. And on top of that, if you're not supplying your brain cells with antioxidants daily, which it needs just to stay alive, then don't be surprised that one day it's going to burn out. Hence the benefit of flavonoid-rich foods and the importance that you don't succumb to peer pressure. There's a plethora of social media influencers who are trying to convince you that energy is what you're missing, that your brain needs special high-octane gas, kind of like your car. And part of this is true, but the quality of your energy molecules come with the quality ingredients such as flavonoids. And if you just focus on energy and not getting your flavonoids, you're going to be missing out on like an internal helmet for your brain. You may see short-term benefits like weight loss, but you'll be sacrificing the long-term protection for your brain. Dementia is literally a lifetime achievement award for yourself, kind of like the Razzies. You know how Hollywood gives the worst movies and actors the Razzie Award? They don't earn it until after the movie is done, right? Well, dementia is a Razzie Award for people who don't spend the time protecting their brains. And whether that's not wearing a helmet when you're on your bicycle or motorized scooter, or not avoiding high-risk physical activities like clobbering people, or not avoiding chemicals that harm your body, and most importantly, not allowing your body to detox from adequate sleep, adequate exercise, or eating enough antioxidant whole foods packed with flavanols that protect and heal your brain. Flavanols are the chemical equivalent to wearing a helmet. Heard of free radicals and oxidative stress? Regardless if you're burning sugar or ketones for fuel, the generation of ATP makes trash called reactive oxygen species. And the more ATP you make, the more reactive oxygen species you get. This literally kills brain cells and mitochondria. So you have to have enough antioxidants, including flavonols, to counteract this stress. You also need other essential vitamins like vitamin C, and your brain can't function well or preserve its structure without them. So when it comes to food options, we have confused things that we need to do to survive versus the things that we need to do to thrive. And unfortunately, you're not going to know if you get the recipe right until you grow old and then you see what happens. Is that really a good way to approach dementia? We have multiple chances every day to correct what we did in the past. And I'm a big believer in monkey see and monkey do. And this monkey is going to take my chances watching what longevity cultures do and just repeat that. You know, we are all in a microscopic war against chemicals and pollutants, from our air to our food to our water. We have more toxins in our food than our founding fathers. And all these things tax our health. Following Hollywood, magazines, social media influencers, they're basically distracting us, and they're making us value looking healthy as opposed to being healthy. What a bunch of baloney. This just makes everything harder. You know, we look at our grandparents and we think, oh, we got longevity genes. But I don't think so. You know, it's just like taking a crummy job. Why do people leave their jobs? Because they feel underappreciated and unsupported. That's essentially what we're doing to our brain. And it basically quits. So I eat for my brain health. My diet is packed with flavonoid-rich foods like these. Hopefully we'll make up for the sleep deprivation working night shifts during medical school, residency, fellowship, and really as a practicing medical doctor. But even if you're not a professional healthcare worker, I'm sure you have had your brain take some hits with sleepless nights caring for your family or older parents. There's no magic pill. We're gonna just have to do it the slowpoke way and support our brain every day and eat real food. But there's only certain foods high in flavonoids. And what's worse is that marketing fools people to think that their processed food are high in flavonoid foods, but all along those flavonoids have been processed out. So your favorite Instagram food chef may start off with a whole food, but end up with a flavonoid deficient meal that will tax your brain health. Food processing, whether it's from a company or you at home, significantly impacts flavonoid content. And the primary ways in which food processing reduces flavonoids includes peeling and refining it. So when you remove the skin or the outer layers of fruits and vegetables and grains, you eliminate high concentrations of flavonoids. Heat exposure, cooking methods like boiling, frying, and prolonged baking, they can all degrade flavonoids. Juicing and extraction. When you remove the fiber and the pulp, you basically strip yourself of flavonoids that was in the fiber. So there's less fiber in processed foods and juice foods. Or maybe how you store it, because prolonged storage, exposure to air, and artificial preservatives, they too may further reduce your flavonoid content. Flavonoid loss is common in processed foods. Berries, jams, and juices. Heat depletes flavonoids. It depletes the anthocyanins. Citrus juices, commercial juices, they lack flavonones because they don't have the peel. So when you peel fruits, you remove flavanol-rich skins. And we're eating refined soy products, soy isolates. Highly processed soy doesn't have isoflavones. And what about commercial chocolate? Milk chocolate really has significantly fewer flavonols than dark chocolate because there's barely any chocolate. How about high temperature cooking, frying, and grilling? That degrades flavonoids. Boiling and steaming, water-based cook methods cause flavonoids to leach out. And then we have problems with food pairing. Adding milk to your tea can reduce your flavonoid absorption. Flavonoids work synergistically with other antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin E, and other polyphenols to enhance their protective effects. Together, they neutralize free radicals, reduce inflammation, and support our brain health, our cognitive function. And hence, it's not just flavonoids that are important to eat. And if you want to learn more about which foods will protect your brain, watch the next video.